The Philadelphia Eagles just got some surprising news from training camp that could change things significantly, as an injury to a promising young defender could leave the door open for another guy to secure a starting job, or it could mean a big move is coming for the Birds. Meanwhile, Vic Fangio just issued a challenge to one of the Eagles' most polarizing defenders, as the battle at the cornerback position is getting more intense. Plus, Jihaad Campbell is making a push to start himself, and two more of the Eagles' young star defenders are really putting the NFL on notice. So I'm going to talk about all that and more in this video today, and we're getting started right now. Alright, so Eagles training camp is really starting to heat up, as after kicking things off last week with 3 practices, the guys are back out on the field this week with 4 practices, those being on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And of course, it's now Tuesday, meaning that the Birds have officially made it through their first 2 practices of the week, and we got a whole bunch of news, updates, and storylines to talk about. So let's begin with what happened here on Monday, which, by the way, I'm recording this here on Monday night, so I don't know what happened on Tuesday yet. But Monday was a very significant day in Eagles training camp, as it was the first day that the guys actually had pads on. Now, they were partial pads, not full pads, but still, definitely, that's a significant step forward. Because let's be real, without pads, the guys are just running around out there in jerseys and shorts, and there's really only so much you can do. So getting those pads on is definitely a game changer, especially for the guys on both the offensive and defensive line. So again, it was great to finally see them get the pads on. And speaking of the defensive line, the Birds had a big development there on Monday, as after sitting out the first 3 practices of training camp with a shoulder injury, superstar defensive tackle Jalen Carter finally returned.
Jalen Carter hasn't been able to practice. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, he'll be out there today. So I'm not going to get too much into injuries or anything like that, but he'll be out there today. Looking forward to having him out there today.
It's definitely good to hear that Jalen Carter was able to get back out there, even if it was just in a limited capacity. However, that's the only positive injury update that we got on Monday, as several other players actually missed practice, including Devontae Smith, who was dealing with back tightness, and rookie safety Andrew Mukuba, who apparently suffered a shoulder injury towards the end of practice on Saturday on a late collision. Now, at the time of this recording, there's no news on the severity of the injury or how long it's going to keep him out for. Now, as for updates on the Eagles' positional battles, obviously, Sidney Brown's the one who started at safety on Monday with Mukuba out. Then at linebacker, we had Jeremiah Trotter Jr. starting next to Zach Bond, which that's significant because on Saturday, Jihaad Campbell actually did get some first-team reps towards the end of practice. But obviously, with Trot still getting the start here, he at least still seems to have the early edge while Campbell ramps up to speed and learns. And while I do think Jihaad Campbell will ultimately end up winning the starting job to begin the season, Trotter Jr. isn't going to make that easy, as he continues to make plays during practice, including getting a pass breakup on a Jalen Hurts pass in 11-on-11s. And then moving over to the cornerback position, once again, it was surprisingly Adoree Jackson who got the start over Kelee Ringo, which now makes 3 out of 4 practices where it was Jackson getting the nod there. Now, again, I'm recording this portion of the video on Monday, so I don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday, but I will say, at least right now, this definitely doesn't make me feel super confident about Kelee Ringo and just the overall current state of the Eagles' cornerback position. But hey, at least the Eagles' other 2 cornerback spots are very much solidified, with Quinyon Mitchell and DeJean just being 2 young stars, both of which also, by the way, recently made headlines. And we'll start with Coop, who on Monday was just named to the NFL Top 100 team, specifically being ranked number 60 in the entire league following his rookie season, which obviously is a fantastic honor, and it's super awesome to see Coop being respected by his peers like that. Now, do I agree with the fact that he's ranked above Jordan Mailata, who was put at number 69? No disrespect to Coop, but definitely not. But still, I love to see him make the list. He definitely deserves it, and as I've said before, I just cannot wait to see what kind of leap he makes in his sophomore season. And of course, I also feel the same way about the other cornerback I just mentioned in Quinyon Mitchell, as it seems like he's going to have an incredible sophomore season as well, and his performance during the early stages of the Eagles training camp only reinforced that. As on Monday, Mitchell was the standout of the day, as he had some awesome battles with A.J. Brown, multiple of which he ended up winning, and it's been reported so far during camp that Q's really the only guy that has been able to stop the Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown connection, so that's definitely super impressive. And that's not even mentioning his best play of the day, as at one point during 11-on-11s, Q actually picked off Jalen Hurts, possibly one-handed according to reporter Zach Berman, on what was albeit an underthrown ball to A.J. Brown, but still very nice to see Quinyon getting an interception and performing well during training camp. And again, I'm just expecting big things for him this season. And I'm also expecting big things for the defense in general, who apparently easily won the day on Monday with both their first and second teams, which, personally, I just think that goes to show you how much farther ahead the defense is right now at this time this year than it was last year. Now, that's obviously no surprise because it is year number 2 for Vic Fangio, but I still love seeing that they're performing well. And then moving over to the offense, and specifically Jalen Hurts, he ended up going 16 for 20 on Monday with no touchdowns and 1 interception. So, definitely not his best day, but again, it's only training camp, so no need to be worried there. And then after practice, a group of players spoke to the media, and that included wide receiver Jihaad Campbell. And I wanted to highlight him specifically because for me personally, at least on offense, he's one of the players that I'm most intrigued by going into this season, because I think he's set up to produce more for the Birds than he did last year. And everything he said during his press conference only reinforces that belief for me.
Coming in last year, I think I got here the Friday before the last preseason game. So, it was kind of playing catch up all year, learning the offense on the fly. But, this year, being that I was able to be with the guys, all OTAs, all training camp, it's a good feeling. And it helps me learn the offense and just play faster.
How do you feel your chemistry with Jalen Hurts has improved, obviously, since last year, but even this offseason camp, how do you feel that's improved?
Yeah, it's improved tremendously. Having the whole OTAs with him, training camp, I was down in Houston throwing with him a couple times. So, it's been big for me, just gaining that trust for him, him knowing exactly where I'm going to be on certain routes. And kind of getting the familiarity with each other. So, it's been real good. We've been building a connection during this offseason and looking forward to taking it into the season. It's up to me to produce. It's up to me to really, come out here every day and make it happen. I felt like last year, I was picking up along the way. And it really showed later in the season as I was gaining more trust with Jalen, becoming very familiar with the offense. So, it's up to me. I've been here whole OTAs, training camp, so I have no excuse this year. So, I'm going to make it happen whenever my opportunity is called upon.
I just really do think that increased comfortability and chemistry that Dotson now has in the offense and with guys like Jalen Hurts is going to help him a lot this season and could lead to an increase in numbers on the stat sheet as well, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And also, one more thing from Monday, shout out to Lane Johnson for making the Madden 99 club along with Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's just an absolutely insane honor, and he couldn't deserve it anymore, so again, congrats to him. And that said, that's it for Monday, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Alright, so it is now Tuesday, and the Birds are back out on the practice field, this time in full pads, which again is obviously huge, and the real football now officially begins. That is, for everybody who was actually out there, as once again, multiple players missed practice, and that includes Devontae Smith, who is still dealing with back tightness, Zach Bond, who apparently suffered a back contusion on Monday, and Nolan Smith, who apparently picked up a concussion on Monday as well. So that's definitely not great news and going to be situations to monitor moving forward in camp. Hopefully all those guys come back soon. But also, in addition to that, Andrew Mukuba missed practice once again with that shoulder injury, with still no update as to the severity of it. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem to be too bad, but depending on how long this keeps Mukuba out, this could wind up being huge in regards to the battle at the safety position. I mean, obviously, the two main guys battling for that spot are Mukuba and the third-year man, Sidney Brown, but if Mukuba is out for an extended period of time with this injury, it could cause him to fall way behind and allow Sid to take a commanding lead in this competition. I mean, let's not forget what happened last year in the battle for right guard, where at the time, the second-year man Tyler Steen seemed to be the clear favorite and was getting pretty much all the first-team reps there, but then he suffered an injury, missed a bunch of time, and that allowed Mekhi Becton to make a strong push and secure the starting right guard job, which ultimately, that turned out to be the right decision. So, jump forward to this year in the battle at safety, and Sidney Brown already seemed to have the early edge. So, again, if Mukuba misses a lot of time, that could ultimately cause him to lose his chance of starting to begin the season. And also, in that case, if the Eagles also end up not being happy with what they see from Sidney Brown, then I do think that could be what prompts them to actually go out and make a move at the safety position. And in that case, the most logical move would obviously be to sign Justin Simmons, who has just been begging to come to Philadelphia all offseason long, but hey, that's all just speculation, and for all we know, Mukuba could be back out there at practice in a few days, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But again, right now, with Mukuba out, this presents an even bigger opportunity for Sidney Brown to pull ahead in this battle. And it sounds like up to this point in the offseason so far, Sid has made a lot of strides forward and has taken advantage of his opportunities.
Yeah, he's finally getting to start in the OTAs, training camp, to learn his way through the system and learn how we expect him to play. And he had no chance of that last year. So I see him getting better.
Again, you definitely love hearing that Sidney Brown is making strides, and you heard Fangio there. He said they expect him to play this year, so, in what capacity will that be? We don't quite know yet, but it'll definitely be something to watch moving forward. And again, this injury to Mukuba very well gives Brown an opportunity to pull ahead in the battle for this starting job. And I also feel a similar way about rookie linebacker Jihaad Campbell, as of course, we don't know what his role is going to be this season either, but he seems to be coming along nicely as well.
I do see him making small strides every day. Again, it may not be noticeable to the average eye, but he's making good strides. And if he can keep making those strides, I think he'll be what we had hoped he would be.
With Zach Bond not out there at practice, Jihaad Campbell was of course getting the first team reps as his replacement, and he made the most of that opportunity, having a sequence where he first got to Saquon Barkley on a run play, and then he popped Dallas Goedert after a catch and sent him to the ground. So, again, it certainly seems like Campbell is already making some great strides forward and could possibly be on track to win that starting job by the time the season begins. But, we'll just have to keep watching throughout training camp to see how it all plays out. But now, moving on to another guy that impressed during Tuesday's practice, we have edge rusher Joshua Uche, as at one point, he got a sack while going up against the second-team offensive line, and then on another occasion, he pressured Jalen Hurts and potentially forced a strip sack on him. Either that or the ball just came out of Hurts' hands, but still, either way, Uche disrupted the play and caused the fumble most likely. So, of course, this is all really exciting to hear. Personally, I think Uche has the potential to be a really good player for this Eagles defense, so I love to hear that he's been making waves during practice, and hopefully he can keep getting better and better and just carry that momentum into the season. And someone who Vic Fangio seems to be hoping is able to do just that is cornerback Adoree Jackson, as after the vet started 3 practices straight for the Birds defense in camp, which he apparently has performed well in, Fangio says that this season, it's time for Adoree Jackson to prove who he is, or who he isn't.
Yeah, the first few days out here, he was kind of like, he didn't know he was out there. The ball wasn't going his way at all. And then yesterday he had a couple balls thrown his way, and he did very well. He had a very good day yesterday. It's too early to say what his experience is or isn't right now. He's played a good bit of ball, but I think this is the place where he's got to, show who he is and be the player, hopefully, that people have always thought he could be. Yeah, I don't know if I think it's the place. I think it's time for him to show that. He in Tennessee, when it came time to re-sign him, after his contract was up, they didn't. The Giants, his contract was up, they didn't. It's time to show who he is or who he isn't.
It certainly sounds like there is a very real chance that Vic Fangio thinks that Adoree Jackson could win the starting job. Again, especially after he did start 3 days in a row at training camp. Now, on Tuesday, the battle did swing back in the other direction a bit as Kelee Ringo got the start at corner, but still, so far through 5 practices, Jackson has gotten the start more often than not, and apparently he's been a little bit more consistent than Ringo. Now, yes, we're obviously still very early on in training camp, and Jackson getting the start the majority of days so far doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to win the job, but still, I thought that Ringo was the clear-cut favorite to start coming into camp, so the fact that it seems like, at least early on, Jackson could actually maybe even be leading that battle isn't exactly ideal, especially since, at this current stage of their careers, Ringo clearly has a higher ceiling and more potential. And again, I think he can be a really good player if he reaches that ceiling, but then again, potential only gets you so far. And if Ringo can at least make progress, win the starting job, and be a good corner for the Birds this season, then I really don't feel good about where the Eagles' corner situation is at, because, Adoree Jackson starting doesn't sound like a surefire plan to me. And maybe in this case where Jackson's actually beating out Ringo, the Eagles would have to look to make a move at corner. So, again, there's no reason to panic. I don't want to overreact to anything. I still think Kelee Ringo very well could win the job. But again, right now, definitely not ideal how things are going, in my opinion, and it's definitely going to be a situation to watch moving forward. Now, moving on to our daily check-in with Jalen Hurts, QB1 went 11 for 17 on his throws with 1 touchdown to Will Shipley and no interceptions. So, good day from Hurts there. Nothing too crazy, not a great day, but again, it's training camp, so you really can't read too much into this, or really anything, honestly. But of course, that's not going to stop me from getting excited. So you guys already know I'm going to be continuing to cover everything that happens for the Eagles throughout all of training camp. So if you don't want to miss any of that coverage, then make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. Again, that way you don't miss anything. And also leave a like down below to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 500 likes on this video. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I did talk about in this video. And if you want to watch another Eagles video going over some more news from training camp, you can check this out right here. Now, with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.